Hey guys, Kevin here, Life22. Fan speed just got a little louder. I just want to make sure that we don't overheat the CPU. It creates lag, things like that. We can keep that thing nice and cool. We keep CPU speeds down. Enjoying a nice gin and 7-Up, a lime, and some club soda. Just trying to make that 7-Up go the distance, and then. It's a salvage night, right? So we're doing a news over beers, and I know I got a comment on this yesterday. Don't look at your phone, Kev. Sorry. Boom. I'm not looking at my phone. Just had to mute it. Probably should do the same to the watch, huh? So you guys don't have to hear beeps and R2D2 going off, nothing like that. So, anyways, yeah, we're doing news over beers. This is number 5. We still don't have Paul with us. We're banging out a whole bunch of them. We've got, I've got 3 more after this on the docket between the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, between Diversity and Inclusion Committee and this council meeting tonight. And the after that, there's a committee meeting from the Common Council and then another Diversity and Inclusion. And tomorrow night, there's actually another Common Council meeting. So we gotta I've got some catching up to do, and that's why I've been trying to bang out 2 a night, 2 podcasts, but at least one of these a night. And I'm almost up on my notes, so I have to re-listen to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee and make notes on that with stop times and things like that, so we don't draw on and on. And oh yeah, and then here's its salvage night. So I'm drinking June's quarter of a White Claw from yesterday. Because waste not, want not. Why put it in the fridge? If you ain't going to drink it, you might as well throw it away. We don't throw beer away in this house. We're part of the Order of Tempest. I don't know what that means. Anyways, so let's see here. Alt-End takes our red screen filter off. We don't need that right now. Let's make us look a little red. Anyways, so yeah, gang. We're here, Life22, and we're reviewing the council, the Common Council meeting from August 24th. This is a quick one, and then I did finish a book today, so I will be moving on to the book review in a preceding video. I'm just banging out videos, folks. We got like 10 videos in the last 2 weeks. See, you guys are mad because we used to just do one video a month, if that, and I was always late, so it was like a month and a half on waiting to see Kevin for his monthly video. Anyways, so here we go. We're going into this council meeting. Here we are. We've got, look at John smiling over and smirking offside. So right here, we're starting. I was trying to get a good image shot, but let's see here. So at 11 minutes and 7 seconds, putting that phone over here so it doesn't make that beepy beepy noise. 11 minutes and 7 seconds is actually when they start council meeting. It's kind of weird, right? It was just dead for so long. So 11 minutes and 7 seconds. Alderman Wood's not here this time. This is where she gets roasted by Mickey George later in the meeting.
We've all received copies of these finance and bills, and at this time I will for any of the aldermen to make a question or comment on finance and bills at this time.
So Committee of the Whole,
all right. As
we discussed in our last meeting, or our last video, which was last night, that the Common Council has videos, or they can create committees. Some of them are built into the charter. They're just like typical standing committees versus like ad hoc committees, which are just thrown together. Like the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is an ad hoc committee because it can be ended at any time, where like certain ones, like you don't typically lose the Parks and Recs Committee, you don't lose the Youth and Recreation Committee, you don't, which almost never met. I was the chairman of that for like the entire time I was an alderman, and we never met. There was nothing that ever came up on it. If you get something on the agenda, the Common Council president essentially throws it on a committee. Unless somebody brings something to you to bring up, at which point you can, as the committee chair, you can force the committee to meet. But it never met because there was nothing that ever came up that wasn't already handled somewhere else. But yeah, so essentially the Committee of the Whole is the Common Council meeting, is the whole Common Council, but it's like the catch-all. Like, if you can't figure out what committee you're going to throw this on to be discussed in detail, then it goes to the Committee of the Whole. And other than that, to give every alderman the opportunity, because not all aldermen sit on every committee, but everyone shows up for all the meetings anyways. But you know, you can voice your concerns and stuff. But if you're not part of a committee, you can't vote for it. So what happens is you break it down. And so like a piece of legislation, a discussion item might turn into a piece of legislation, but it's discussed and it goes up, or, you know, like you gauge what the discussion turns out to be. Then you propose legislation if it's going to go forward. You propose legislation, it gets referred by the Common Council president at the next Common Council meeting to a committee, at which point he'll most likely him or she will most likely pass it back to the committee in which the discussion was brought up at. And then it's a PL on the floor, proposed legislation, and that PL will then get voted up or down out of and if it gets out of that committee, typically it's referred to, depending on the severity. Sometimes it'll go right to the Common Council meeting to be voted on, to be turned into a law, or to have whatever its goal or design or whatever is to be passed. Maybe there's a time constraint. But typically, almost every piece of legislation goes to the committee of the whole, so before it can get out of that committee, it's voted on by every single alderman who are present at that time. And then once it's out of that committee, then it moves to the Common Council committee, or the Common Council meeting, at which point it is, you know, either shot down there at the final attempt, or it's made into law. And that's kind of how it works. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for something to get murdered, or, you know, shot down, a PL, and there's a lot of time for discussion and questions. One side who has, you know, been voting against something the entire time has, you know, time to make additional arguments and win additional votes. So there's plenty of things like that going on. So the committee of the whole is convening, and they start it at 11:07. And literally everything on this meeting is housekeeping. We'll start playing it. They do finance and bills.
Motion is made by Alderman Anastasia.
And it just quickly gets moved. Finance and bills moved to the Common Council meeting, right? So it can be shot up or down, which I've never seen it shot down. If it was shot down, you wouldn't be paying your bills, right? Like they have to approve to pay the bills. And I'm assuming it's just because it's presented. I mean, one could assume that you could say, we are going to make a motion to amend this to exclude a certain bill. We refuse to pay this because of such and such, right? Like, but never seen it. Nobody has the audacity or the cojones to do that. And most things don't warrant you to whip your cojones out and have to do it at minor bull crap. Like, I don't know why they bought an extra keyboard ergonomic thing for $35 when we could get it at Walmart for $20. Like, well, now we're splitting. Hardly hear Bob. Bob speaks real low, and he also usually doesn't hold the mic. When the interpreters were here before they got fired, I think they got fired. I haven't seen them in forever. I'm assuming that was the big hullabaloo. Hey, we're on Zoom. We're going strictly to YouTube, and YouTube is handling the closed captioning, so we don't need you to sign anymore. Fair enough. But typically they would always complain because Bob would never pick up the microphone. Now Bob's picking up the microphone, but he must not have it close enough to his mouth. Or, oh, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't know if that microphone is actually tied into the recording system. So I'm not sure. Or it's just not on.
Yeah, how that 17% came to exist.
Oh, so he's talking about some housekeeping. We're renewing the lease with the New York State court system, which essentially rents the hall for the courtroom from the city of Olean. And it's deemed to be like 17% of the building that they use, and that's what they reimburse us for, whether it's capital projects or it's our monthly bills. Our aggregate bills at the end of the year, like they're based on the previous year, and they say we're paying you 17% of the utility bills. We're paying you 17% of this, and they'll make an adjustment at the end of each year, and we sign a contract every year or two. Another
facility, Mayor Ilio, to authorize the mayor to execute a special patrol officer contract
Okay, so the Special Patrol Officer contract is a renewed contract. It comes up every 2 years with the school district. That's your resource officers. The rent-a-cops that you see, they're actually ex-police officers. They're employed by the police officer, or by the police department, and we get reimbursed by the school. So technically, they have the magisterial powers of the police department with the executive branch of government's law enforcement capabilities.
Any questions on this?
And maybe you guys can hear it better than I
The
can.
number of officers are going to remain the same?
Yes, correct.
Remains the same. Nothing has changed. Not even the dollar value has changed. I think there's probably like 1% clause or something, 1.5% clause. Whatever the unions go up by is typically what we readjust for. If we're renewing,
All in favor? Aye.
it just says like, it's a cost. We're not making any money on the school district by having them there. We train the officers. We do this. We do that. It's for school safety, right? You're not making any money off of government. At least that shouldn't be the goal.
Alderman
Right?
Robinson, all in favor? Aye.
Boom, we renew that, and at 11 minutes and 45, or 15 minutes and 45 seconds, so right here, boom, that's all housekeeping stuff. And that all got moved to the Common Council meeting, which is about to start in about 6 seconds. So the start of the Common Council meeting, and the Common Council meetings are, kind of dull at the beginning, and the real meat and potatoes is like if there's a potential piece of legislation, which you'll see at the end when they're passing all the legislation, and in the dead center of it is the public comment, which, depending on the legislation they're going to pass or any current issues, there's protests out in Times Square, wherever, like that's where the real juicy steak comes in. So. They stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, or they stand for the invocation, which I can get into that at a different time. Well, no, screw it. We're going to do it today because there's almost nothing on this committee meeting, or this council meeting. There's like nothing. We're going to listen to 2 people speak at public comments, and then we're going to listen to all the bookkeeping stuff be passed, and then the meeting's over. So I have a big deal with like when I was on the council, and when I first got there, Jerry Lefebvre would do the alderman of Ward 1 would do the invocation, and he was like a pastor for many years, so he would just always do the invocation. And then when it came up for grabs, I started thinking about it, like, you know what? Like, separation of church and state, I get that. You want to do a religious prayer, let's switch it up. And anytime I ever invited, like, a rabbi, a mosque leader, and you have to excuse me because I don't know the title, imam? I can't remember the name. Anyways, the priest at a Islamic mosque, for the Muslim faith, I invited them. And anytime I would invite them, like, oh, when should I tell them? Well, we've got it all booked up, blah, blah, blah. We got guest speakers, or so-and-so's doing it, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, well, when is it going to be we went into a rotation. When is it going to be my turn? And I kept getting shot down, and it was always trumped by Christian speakers, which, hey, fine, that, they're like 85% of the population here. So, you'd assume that they would monopolize the time. But at the same time, don't discriminate and knock these other people out. Like, if you're going to keep it religious, let's spread it out amongst the religions. And then, so what I was like, you know what, screw this, I'm Kevin Doherty. So I did a Pastafarian speech, and we can upload that video. I've got to find it in the archives. I've got a video of me at the Common Council meeting. It was at Ladorna Fox's retirement from the zoning board, and there was like the biggest turnout for kids in participation government class to actually show up to a Common Council meeting. They're all there, and like, I already had this thing set. I had a GoPro set up on the side. I set the GoPro with the city attorney afterwards, and made a duplicate for him, so he had it, so it was foilable. And then everyone tried to hush the damn thing. But I made a Pastafarian speech, and if you don't know about the Pastafarians, they are the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Kind of cool, right? Yeah. So they believe in their heaven contains stripper factories and beer volcanoes. They believe they're descendants of pirates because pirates have closer DNA to them than primates. So like, yeah, evolution works, but we don't evolve from monkeys. We evolved from pirates because our DNA is more similar to pirates. Like, and you could make the same argument. I evolved from my parents because my DNA is closer to them than anybody else. And well, yeah, that's true. It's kind of a funny little thing. So I did that, and it offended a whole bunch of people. Go figure. And the paper didn't write anything about it. But that was my first little like, why did you pick that? Why didn't you pick a Muslim thing or a Jewish thing or whatever? And I was like, because unless I made a point, nobody would take that kind of sincerity to be legitimate. They'd be like, oh, Kevin's Muslim or Kevin's Jewish. Like, no. I want you, like, this is a point for you that you guys need to understand that this is important. We need to talk about this. You need to let other religions in, or you take religion out of it. Because an invoking speech in a church, in a synagogue, in a mosque is something that evokes people and their purpose of why they're there. People do not come to common council meetings for religion, which religion's important and beliefs are important, and morals are important, but here's the thing is it has nothing to do with why people aren't here for morality. They might convey their morality, but they're not here for morality. They're not here for religious belief. They're here for the day-to-day business of government and what government does. Maintains roads, police, fire, tax collection so that they can pay for all of the above. In our area, infrastructure like water and sewer lines, things like that. That's why they're here. So an invoking speech in terms of government isn't a prayer. It is a speech like JFK gave, which is ask not what your government can do for you, but what you can do for your government. That's an invocation in government, not a like an after dinner, or pre-dinner, like bless us Lord for the meal that is presented. Like I was half tempted to do one of those because that's how ridiculous it had gotten. And I think I sent a big cannonball across the bow of a lot of people. And then when Kelly Andriano stepped down, who was a big proponent, and she took it up for, 2 years just because of my Pastafarian thing. When she stepped down, I took over, and literally it was like, this is not religious at all. And then it finally got taken away from me because everyone bitched. Nobody bitched. Like 2 people got mad and they pulled it and they said, "Oh, it has to have God in it." Like, no, I mean, what about the religions that don't have God? Like, it doesn't have to have God in it. It has to be invoking. Like I did Ronald Reagan. I did Richard Nixon, Abraham Lincoln, JFK. I did a series of governmental speeches. That's the invocation. Sorry, and then they pretty much pawned it off on the Lens. Lens doesn't even you can hear him stammer through it. He's not a big. I don't know if he's a big fan of it. Maybe he is. But like they're all pre-written for him, so he just reads them as the city clerk. So they do that. Skip ahead. They do the Pledge of Allegiance, as you can see there. Boom. And then they jump into, they read the minutes from the previous committee meetings. And then they do all the PLs for referral moving forward. And then, and before that, they do, right after this, they do the reading of the previous committee meetings. Any communications from the mayor, we have none. Any special notices, which would be liquor licenses, things like that. And I believe there was the renewal of the Century Manor.
Alderman Panis, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Committee reports and unfinished council business.
Committee reports and unfinished is kind of like a little synopsis summary. And then Lens, read your thing. Oh, there we go.
Referred to Committee of the Whole Tuesday, August 24th, 2021 by Council President.
At 22 minutes and 45 seconds in, we do the public comment. So everyone talks about how this is a right. This is not a right. This is something that they've added and that no one's removed. Now I'm in favor of public comment. It was there at the school board meetings and then they removed it and then restricted it and brought it back. So I'm a big fan of the Common Council. I'm a big fan of like why the Common Council does it. I'm not a big fan of how the school district does it, where you actually have to now reserve a spot. So they still have it, and then like it depends on who you are, and they can, like, if you sign up for it, they don't have to allow you to speak. If they say, oh, we know this guy, he's a nut job, like we don't want him to talk, like they can decline you, which I don't like. At the Common Council meeting, if you get out of hand, like every single time, like Scott the Human Paletto had been removed from many a council meeting, and he was more or less, he would preach about the same stuff. I always liked Scott. He was kind of radical, but. And then when he started picking fights with he was calling out aldermen, and they felt it was unfounded, and he felt that they were founded, and really there was just a disagreement in opinion, and so that's where you get really just down to the nitty gritty of it. So I don't know. They banned him for like an entire year. Like they're like, you can't come here, and it's effective like essentially for a year. Because essentially the council works in year-to-year increments, right? So like even though our fiscal budget is like 6/1 to 5/31, the Common Council exists from January 1 until December 31st, and every year on the reorganizational meeting, which is the first like Monday, is the first Tuesday. I think it's the first Monday of the calendar year. The city, like, essentially, like, everyone is not an alderman anymore unless they're slated to be, right? Like, it's like, so, like, all PLs die on December 31st at midnight, or at 11:59 p.m. Like, as soon as that happens, as soon as it strikes midnight at January 1, any PL that has not turned into law dies, and it must be reintroduced into the next calendar year. Essentially, it's Groundhog's Day. Which it is what it is. That's how it's structured, right? Like the structure has to have a beginning and end. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, you bring in the old alderman. Just as of that time, you are no longer an alderman. There are no aldermen until January 1, and the other aldermen have to be sworn in at the swearing-in ceremony, and they have to have signed the book and all that other stuff. And that's usually they have that happen like before. But yeah, so. So essentially you hand somebody a notice saying they can't come to a council meeting. It expires on December 31st of that following year. So if you hand it to them in November, you just kick them out for a month. They can come back in January. You got to reserve them a new notice. So have your notices ready. You know what I mean? Like that's where it was. So our first speaker here is going to be George H. from York Street. He'll tell you his name. It's public record.
Good evening, gentlemen.
I like this guy.
He's not here.
He's a real snap.
I'm here to address you about the problems that Olean has.
Alderman.
The problems we have right today. The problem we have is Olean is
Sorry, sir, you didn't say your name and address.
diminishing.
I'm sorry, sir, did you say
Can
your
you hear
name?
me?
Can you hear me?
Could you say your name and address?
He is
please, for the
legally,
record?
I believe,
I'm
legally
George
deaf,
Hendricks.
deaf or
I
blind.
live at 430 York Street. I'm in Paul's district, and I've
I've
been a resident here
a friend of
for
mine is a
over
neighbor of his,
85
and says that
years.
like he shouldn't even be driving a car. Like
Thank
he
you.
legally shouldn't be able to drive a car. He cannot
Olean's
hear.
population is diminishing.
He can vaguely see.
The latest census shows that
But he does his
Olean
homework.
has
You gotta give it to him.
13,161 people as of 2021. That's 500 and some less than 2 years ago. We're continuing to diminish. In several more years,
I'm gonna let
some
him
of
talk for a
you,
minute. and
all of it will not be here.
I'm gonna go handle. Well,
I can remember Olean had 11 aldermen.
I'm gonna go handle the dog.
Anyway,
Just a second.
what's the problem? The problem is there's no jobs for our young people. There's no jobs for people to come and stay in Olean. What is our job market? Our job market is if you have the right education, you can get a job with the Olean medical people, the hospitals, nurses, medical facilities. If you have the right education, you can get a job with a school. Schools have to replace their teachers now and then. And finally, our biggest employer now is Cutco. Cutco is retiring on the average 30, 40 people a year. They have to replace them. Other than that, there's no market. Our leading industry for years, over 100 years, Dresser Clark, is diminishing. I checked with the Chamber of Commerce today to ask if they knew how many people were still employed there. They said approximately 400. Remember, that used to be 1,200. So, if you have children, where
Sorry,
are they
folks.
going to go after they
That
get
was two of my
educated?
son's Legos, and
Can
they're
they come
arguing
back to
about it.
Olean and find a job?
Puppies.
I don't think so. I don't think there's jobs
Puppies is
available
almost a year.
for 'em,
So
unless they're educated for schooling or maybe the medical facilities,
So,
or want to go out.
this is
and
like
wait
the meat and
outside
potatoes.
Cutco for somebody to
There's
retire.
George here,
they can
and
take
George
an
is a
interview.
big opponent of
Only
the
as
legalization of
continuing
marijuana.
to
You know where we stand on marijuana, like, and
Now,
I know
the
that
other
we're not
fact,
the, you know,
everything I'm telling you, I've
I get
got
along with George.
off
I
the
don't agree
internet.
with him on that
It's
issue.
all available to all of you.
I like him.
The other thing that
Guys.
really
In
shocked
his
me,
ways, I mean, I hope that I can be a little more
They should-
open-minded when I'm his age.
I brought the papers.
Everything, this is
I'm gonna
the
give them to you
past,
'cause I want you
and
to
blah,
check
blah,
them
blah,
out.
but, you know,
can't
I like
believe
it,
it.
you know? I gotta give him
Here's
that.
what I found on the internet. Is Olean a good place to live?
Oh, he Googled it. This is the
Olean, this is what the internet says, Olean is a quiet town with a population of 13,000, which is accurate. It is pretty small.
It's pretty small.
Overall, Olean is a great place for older individuals,
To retire.
myself, looking for a small town to retire in.
It's my homemade coaster.
No, it does not say I think it's a great town to raise a family in. It's not a great
think
town
it
to
is,
come and
but-
be employed in.
Google doesn't think so.
Other thing that shocked me, and I'm glad you're all sitting down, and it shocked me and I can't believe it. I want you to check it
Hold on,
out.
folks. We're in parade.
Is Olean, New York safe? The answer that you have on Google is
Last
this.
October 1st, too.
Based on FBI crime data,
These smokes.
Olean is not one of the safest communities in America. Relative to New
It's
York,
not like we just had a shooting. and
Olean
murder.
has a crime rate
Third
that
Street.
is higher than 90% of the states, cities, and towns of all sizes. 90%! That's incredible.
He should be sitting down.
I can't
This
believe
is
that.
terrifying. Surprised he isn't hiding under the podium.
I can't believe it. Now, the question is, does Olean want to have bring marijuana
His voice,
in
though.
there? My
It's like
God.
listening to Christopher
If we're
Walken.
praying that
It's-
marijuana
I love
breaks,
it. It's-
we're gonna be on
I eat this shit up. This is why they used to love me at the council meetings. Because they're like, Kevin,
That's
stop
it, folks.
smirking. And I'm like,
Here,
it's Christopher
Chief,
Walken.
Check this out. This
Check
comes
this out,
from
Chief.
a
I'm
crime
gonna step
grade
off camera.
off of the internet. Check these figures out.
Check these figures out. You back me up on this one, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you. And they just kind of like, watch, they just shuttle him. They shuttle him away. Like, see you later. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Mr.
Mickey
H.
George, Ward 3.
Oh, yeah, here comes Mickey.
Following up on the recent discussions of the police reform efforts, the Executive Order 203 Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative was a much-needed strategic planning discussion. The creation of CRBs was the #1 approach
And the stupid masks.
being adopted by cities of New York
You
State.
can hardly hear them.
Experts have thought it necessary, and the collab results reinforce
You
the
guys may need
importance
to turn
of
this
building
on.
this bridge
I don't.
between police and community. I wanted to join the PRRC to ensure higher standards. Part of that is based on my personal experience, but also because I know our unique lifestyle here in these mountains makes us a bit oblivious at times. It's a very lax and comfortable lifestyle here, and if we are to be honest, many Oleanders don't take well to progressive changes. I'm sure your inboxes have been flooded with complaints about the roads for years now. I think they're brilliant. Keep up the terrific work,
Keep up the truth.
beautifying and
The roundabouts are
diversifying the
amazing.
city. As I consider
Dave
this
Anastasia would
change
be
crowning achievement to date.
Well, he's there, so he's probably like
New
cringing.
York
to
is a
see.
progressive
He
state.
hates the
The
he hates
progressive
the
state.
roundabouts.
We take what we've learned and we make improvements right away.
I like Dave, but
don't
you
stall
know,
on
he's
political
like
points
any
when issues are
Facebook
affecting
comment
the
you see
lives
that's
of
anti-roundabout, like
We rise to
that
the occasion and
that
get
like
the job done.
like
But
that
this
almost is
Olean.
epitomized Dave on the
The
council. Like,
PRC committee already
Wow.
considered this
screw
heavily
roundabouts.
along
Yeah,
every
that's
step
great.
of the way. To pretend we are exempt from taking meaningful measures because of our demographics, such as ethnicities, population size, or income, is dismissive. It's exclusionary and unjust, to put it lightly. Linda asked during recent discussions, how does somebody qualify to be marginalized? Linda is the head of the Diversity, Equity, or Inclusion Committee, and I'm extremely
Hold on, folks. I got a screenshot. We got Bernie Sanders in right behind Mickey's left shoulder. That is hilarious. Oh man. Where? All right, disappear that. Print screen. Saving that one for a rainy day. Boom. I like it. Oh, here we go. I'm saving one of them. Boom. I love it. Sorry. Anyways, and it's kind of quaint because Bernie Sanders is over on his shoulder, and Mickey's gonna go into a bunch of socialism crap. So I get along with Mickey. So a little backstory: me and Mickey were friends in high school. Mickey's older than I am, but like I knew Mickey from high school. I knew Mickey from like people that I knew in Olean. We became buddies. It's one of those things I never agreed 100% with what Mickey did, but you know, you got friends, right? Like I got friends that are Democrats. I'm Republican. Like they're my friends. You know what I mean? Like they're friends with me. I'm friends with them. Like they don't. You know what I mean? We butt heads from time to time. It's like anything else. You don't have to hate everybody all the time. Like people don't seem to get that. So, anyways, like, do I understand what the hell? Like Mickey doesn't like. Anytime I have a friend that has changed their gender, they instantly stop talking to me instead of like giving me like the ability for me to have a conversation. I actually have one friend that was like, "Hey, I was a chick and now I'm a dude. We talk about it." Like, do I agree? Probably not. But you know, it's their body, their choice. Which I don't like that argument for abortion, but that's a different story. But yeah, no. So like, but we I respect people's pronouns if I respect the person, and then I don't bring it up. Like if I don't agree with you on it and it's a sensitive issue for you, I don't talk about it. Like me and Mickey have never talked about it. Mickey didn't change his name or nothing, but apparently he's a chick now. So whatever, like that's fine. But anyways, backstory on Mickey. So Mickey recently did that, and then like back in high school, I mean, Mickey had a swastika tattoo on his arm. Did you notice Mickey's wearing long sleeves? It's like 80 degrees outside. I mean, it's not the dead of summer in this, but it definitely is not long sleeve material. Most button-down shirts are typically long sleeve. There's not too many people that you'll catch wearing short sleeves unless they're wearing button-down shirts all the time, like all seasons. At which point you'll see those like office guys wearing, short button-down shirts and stuff like that. But for the most part, most button-down shirts are long sleeve, and that's probably why it's in George's, Bernie's there. And he's probably got low blood circulation, given his age, and things like that. So he's wearing long sleeve shirts. Mickey's a young dude. He's a young chick, and he's wearing long sleeve shirts. It's probably to hide the swastika tattoo, and nobody wanted to bring that up ever before. And like, hey man, we get tattoos. Like I actually have 0 tattoos, but people get tattoos when they're young and dumb, and they think that they're part of some group, and then they're not part of some group, and they have ideologies, and they find religions, they fall out of religions, they find new religions. It all happens, right? Like nobody's calling Mickey a Nazi. I don't think Mickey's a Nazi. I think he's dumb and got a stupid tattoo when he was younger. And like, guess what? Tattoos are like, some mistakes you can't back yourself out of. Like tattoos, you can't back yourself out of an abortion. That's for sure, Aziz. you know, sexual mutilation or whatever, like, they go through for sex changes, that you can't usually back yourself out of that either. You can't become back a dude when you chop it off. Like, it's just shit that happens, right? So, okay, anyways, Mickey was always like, I don't know, he didn't get along with his stepdad. You know, a lot of people that, you know, grow up in homes where there's a stepdad involved, they either love him or they hate him, and then, like, hatred usually leads to violence, non-hatred usually leads to civility. Like, that's just how it happens. Anyways, so, but, like, I get along with Mickey. Mickey didn't, you know, it's one of those things. But I don't get along with, I don't like the socialist values that he's about to bring forward. I do agree with him on roundabouts. I think the roundabouts are fine. I think they save the city a lot of money in electricity, not having light systems. I think that the traffic has been improved by it. So I'm not going to argue with him on that point. And I'm here to do political critical thinking. I'm not here to argue with friends. Or I still consider Mickey a friend. He doesn't talk to me. But I haven't talked to him in a long time. He helped us start our coffee shop. Like, it was, he kind of helped push that little project off the ground. I mean, it was a coffee shop in Olean, New York. If you don't have a drive-through, you're dead in the water regardless. So, I mean, that literally was, we all took a bath on it, you know? And, so.
I'm really concerned by this and other comments coming from her.
He's concerned that Linda, from the last meeting, does not know what a marginalized community is. So marginalized community is what people declare is that somebody is of a certain race or ethnicity, that Hollywood says that they were racially bigoted against, and that those systemically racist problems still exist today. Which, I mean, clearly, I mean, in certain areas it might happen, but it's not happening only in New York. Marginalized community. So I'm marginalized because I voted for Donald Trump, right? Like, as soon as you say that, people automatically go, oh, he's a bigot and racist. Well, guess what? No one's ever seen bigots and racists in our area. So given the fact that, like, they can't produce any, and if I'm apparently one of them, I must be marginalized. I'm like a small percentage of the population. I am a minority. I also have blue eyes, which when I was a kid, my dad used to reinforce this statistic, and I don't know if it's still a true statistic, and if it must be global, right? Like, the male wiener size is always like, no, the average Earth wiener size is like 4.5 inches, like, because they take into account everybody across the globe. Wow, that makes you feel good when you're like 10, right? Like, oh, I'm average, right? Like, you're 10, okay? Good for you. Anyways, lost my track. Oh, my dad used to enforce in us that, like, oh yeah, you're a minority, 3.5% of all humans on the planet got blue eyes. I have blue eyes. I'm 3.5% of the population. That's a pretty minor percentage of the population. I'm like the percentage of the population that, like, died of COVID. Actually, I think it's smaller. I think that population's actually smaller than the blue-eyed people, but let's continue on to listen to Mickey.
This is what I've been saying all along. You have to drive a higher standard. People depend on you for it. But with the CRB, keep the structure simple. Complaints come in, quality people are given trust to investigate, follow up, and reports, and recommendations to the chief and the council. There are also new statewide reporting standards regarding complaints and disciplinary records for police agencies. I'm sure Chief will get the information sent to him soon if he hasn't already. And in closing, I really wish the contract up for vote was for a new social worker or a mental health expert instead of a school officer. Why? Capitalism is on its way out the door.
It certainly is not. It's on its way out the door. From your perspective, yeah, if you're only following Facebook and the internet, of course it's on its way out the door. If AOC was in charge, or Bernie there over your left shoulder? Yeah, it would. Yeah, it's on its way out the door. Capitalism is not on its way out the door. Over my dead body is capitalism on its way out the door. So anyways, it gets better.
And increasingly will need assistance. There's two ways a nation can lean when transitioning socioeconomic systems. You can either lean toward a police state or toward socialism.
Right, so a dictatorship or the stepping stone to communism, which is socialism. And so here we go.
I believe more social policies and programs are the obvious better choice.
Oh, it's the obviously better choice to step toward communism than a dictatorship. Well, yeah, I mean, if you were the military generals in Afghanistan and you were said, you have to be out by this date, given that parameter, what would you do? Like, well, if I have to, then I would do this. Well, you said we got to do it. Like, no, if I have to, I don't want to leave. There's no need for us to leave. We're preventing bad stuff from happening. Boom. Like, well, if capitalism were to walk out the door. Okay, so now we're into hypothetical. So if capitalism was on its way out the door and you had to choose, like, let's shoot right to a dictatorship or we could step to socialism, which inevitably leads to communism, what would you choose? Like, I would choose a more drawn-out path, I guess, but, I mean, like, even communism is a dictatorship at a certain point. Like, look at Stalin. Stalin ran a communist state, and he was still a dictator. Like, he was the guy, the guy that would applaud, and everyone would applaud. There was, like, a 30-minute, like, if you ever read the Gulag Archipelagos, which I highly recommend, I believe it was volume 2, the guy was just clapping and clapping and clapping. Everybody was clapping for Stalin, and then this one guy was like, I'm fucking done. He was as old as Bernie Sanders over here, and he was just like, I'm done. And he just stopped, and then everybody was like, okay, shoot, I wasn't the first one to stop. And then afterwards, they were like, why'd you stop? Because now you know where you have to go. You've got to go to the gulags. And they took him to the gulags because he stopped clapping. Like, essentially, it was torture sessions. It was essentially like being a Scientologist. If you ever watch any of those studies or any of those documentaries on the Scientology, like the people that question the high authority, the workplace violence that happens in Scientology. Like, you want to talk about like workplace violence? That shit don't exist in real life. Like, people make that up just to knock their boss out. Like, my boss is a piece of shit. I don't like my boss. Like, get rid of him. Workplace violence accusations. Oh, well, he looked at me sideways when I wore the slutty dress to the Christmas party. Sexual harassment. Fuck you. Like, that's how it works. That's how it works, folks. And, but the accusations that come out of, like, the Scientology from people that are actually, like, religiously believe that. We're like, whoa, shit was getting out of hand over here. Like, I trust that opinion. Like, if you get suckered into something and all of a sudden you, like, wake up and you're like, oh, Dave made him eat his physical poop. Like, holy smokes. Talking about workplace violence. Yeah, he rubbed his nose in it. Like, yeah. And he's starting treating people like dogs. Okay. Anyways, if you're held at gunpoint and you have two different roads to choose, you might take the slower path because you can at least fight from a slower path rather than take the straight police state, the martial law plan, right? But, like, we're not at that point, Mickey. But let's continue.
People have shown very clearly they will no longer tolerate a brutal police state. So now we go the other direction. Having just one or two qualified experts available to reduce police interventions in the city of Olean could make all the difference in the world. I want to thank Mayor Alio for his professional and scientific approach in this matter. Removing a personal bias is a real, genuine challenge. Despite this, I think Mayor has done an impeccable job in trying to meet that higher standard, and I urge you all to keep doing so. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
So, thanks, Mickey. Anyways, and I like Bill. I get along with Bill. Me and Bill get along great. I don't know why Mickey's kissing his ass there at the last minute. I mean, that's left up to interpretation. Mickey looking for recommendation to be on the CRV, the CRB maybe. Like that's really, you got to think stuff like that with these with these kind of political moves. Mickey called me out in a meeting, like, and was like, "Hey man, no offense meant by it. I just, I had to do what I had to do. Like, that's fine, man. Speak your political views. You speak your political views. I'm not gonna take offense by it, but like, because that's how politics are. Like, you're friends with somebody here, and then like 2 minutes later, or you're not. You're somebody's brutal enemy here, and then like you're like grabbing beers afterwards. Like, yeah, like actors on a stage. Like, that's how politics ends up being. I don't like it that way. I don't like to let it do that. Like, so I will always be myself, and like I get along with Mickey. I can talk. Like me and Linda Witt, we butt heads all the time. We argue about everything, and it's like. But then, like, afterwards, I'll have a beer with her. I'll be civil with her. Like, it's... And there's no animosity. So, that's like the best part about being civil, is civility. Civility is the best part of politics. I hate all the games. I hate all the lies. That's all bullshit. But so that's what this is about, is helping you guys pick out the lies and stuff like that. I love the Bernie Sanders shots that we got today. And look, Bernie's out like a light. I love it. Love it. Love it. Print screen. Bernie. Love it. Night night, Bernie.
What else?
So anyways, the rest of the meeting is pretty summed up because I pretty much just have two end. Mickey George is the last one at 28 minutes and 48 seconds. And then
Finance and bills.
they're going to finance and bills. They're going to pass finance and bills, boilerplate stuff. They're going to pass the other PLs they referred from committee of the whole.
59-21, PL 51-21.
To authorize the mayor to
Alderman
enter
Bernard, seconded by Alderman Anastasia, to authorize the mayor to execute
enter
a
into an
special
executive
officer
agreement with
between the city of Olean and the Olean School District.
the special, the school budget thing.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
And they call the roll, and it passes 7-0 or
Yes.
6-0 because Linda's not there.
Alderman Bernard,
Yes.
Boom.
Alderman Robinson,
And boom. And that was the Common Council meeting, folks, for 8/24. I'm going to do a book review, and then next up on the agenda for this segment of News Over Beers, the next time you'll see me is for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee from 8/25, which is the following day. So, peace, folks. We'll catch you here momentarily.